Speaker, I rise to speak on the government business program. Once again, as outlined as well by the member for Brighton earlier, we have a program that reflects a Labor government more focused on tightening up political risk and distracted rather than doing what Victorians need most and owning up to where they've gone wrong. This week, it is impossible to separate this program before the House from what Victorians have learned about more corruption and a distorted culture within the CFMEU and others within the framework of this Labor government. We've seen intimidation, criminality and more which has been allowed to fester. While this government asked Parliament to wade through several changes this week, including more reductions of independent scrutiny, Victorians have had to waste $15 billion of taxpayer money. That is $15 billion of hard-earned money paid to this government by taxpayers, which has been ripped out of their pockets by corrupt CFMEU overlords, enabled by a negligent and permissive Labor government, with a Labor Party benefiting from this corruption and being silent. Now, on the legislation itself before us this week, I'll start with the
Mornington will
bill.
resume his seat. The member for Leverton has a point of order.
Thank you, Speaker. Well, you would think after almost 4 years in this place that member for Mornington would understand the rules of government business program, and I ask you to draw his attention back to the program that is before the House. And
member for Mornington, member for Leverton, please raise your point of order succinctly. Member for Mornington, to come back to the government business program before the House.
I will continue talking about the Entities Bill, which is part of the government business program this week. Now, in this bill, most concerning are measures that reduce independent oversight. Firstly, the bill pares back the role of the Essential Services Commission in areas that directly affect household costs, including rate capping and pricing oversight.
Member for Mornington, I'd ask you not to go into the detail of the bill.
Indeed, Speaker, removing the independent umpire increases the risk of lobbying and weakens specialist scrutiny. Now, I note that with this bill that members will speak about this week, it is especially concerning given the total failures of oversight we've seen this week, with $15 billion of taxpayer funds spent on lap dancers, strippers and more. That's about $5,000 per taxpayer, which the Labor government obviously doesn't want to hear about.
Member for Mornington will resume his seat. The member for Point Cook has a point
relevance.
of order. I'd ask you to come back to the government business program once again. Member for Mornington.
Speaker, it is of course important to contrast these bills with what is happening in this state at the moment. Now, I want to move
Member for Mornington. Is a government business program. You need to speak to the government business program.
Now, I want to turn to the energy bill. The government has been unwilling to be transparent about the cost impacts on consumer bills. Now, members who will be speaking on this bill and debating this bill this week will be talking about provisions that risk weakening planning environmental safeguards through transitional shortcuts. And members will speak about program changes being advanced without key reviews being publicly released, fueling the impression of policy being made on the run. This is at a time of rising cost of living pressures and a government that's made it even worse by cutting services and raising taxes. And then we find out, as mentioned before, that they've totally wasted $15 billion. Now, the last bill that was before us this week.
Member for Mornington will resume his seat once again. Member for Point Cook has a further point of order.
On relevance, if he can't speak to it, he should sit down.
Order. I ask you. Order. Member for Mornington will resume his seat. Member for Point Cook, it is not your position to tell the Speaker how to rule on another member. Member for Mornington, come back to the government business program.
Now, Speaker, we move to the last bill that was part of this government business program this week, the Supporting Stable and Strong Families Bill. This is a bill which is about vulnerable children in the child protection system, their families and care leavers, recognising the outcomes are shaped across housing, health, education and justice, not just child protection. This is at the same time when this government is leaving vulnerable children in their cars, on our foreshores and elsewhere, such as on the Mornington Peninsula in the electorates of Nepean and Mornington, which has the highest rate of rough sleeping in the